What's up, man? Thanks for hopping on. All right, let's get started. Guys. First and foremost, welcome to my live sales training webinar. Thank you so much for hopping on. It is presented to you today by my Alpha Sales System, which is my selling system that I've created just for salespeople like yourself. First and foremost, once again, welcome and thank you for being here. It's a great honor and privilege for me to be able to do what I love and be able to bring it to you on this Friday morning. And I commend you for being here and carving out, whether it's the entire webinar or a few minutes of your time. I commend you for being here because just the simple fact you're taking a few minutes out of your day to hone your skills and to sharpen your skills and hone your craft, that separates you from 99.9% of salespeople. Believe me when I tell you that 99.9% of salespeople do not take time out of their day to work on their game. We spend a lot of time working in our game, but 99.9 don't take the time to work on their game. So I commend you for being here. And I'm excited to begin this journey with you. This is our first live webinar, one of many to come. And we're working on a lot of exciting things behind the scenes that we're going to be able to bring to you to help increase your skill set and to make selling not only cars, but selling anything in general, more fun and allow you to make more money at the end of the day. As we kind of systematically unlock the secrets of sales to perform at a top 1% level. I don't think any of us here are here to be average. That's proof of you actually being on this webinar. So the secrets that we're going to unlock together will allow you to separate yourself from the pack and stand out amongst your peers and your competition. So thank you for being here, and I commend you for being here. Just to go over a little bit about, what my passion is and my mission for you. Quite simply, my passion is selling, and my passion is teaching people how to sell. I'm a 34-year-old single bachelor with no kids, and this is literally all I do, right? So I do this during the week. I do this on weekends. I do this on Sundays. This is my passion. This is what I love to do. And even more than selling, I love teaching people how to sell. I love teaching people how to sell. And my mission for you is to have that same excitement when you walk into the dealership every day to not only do your job and perform, the tasks at hand and work in your game, but get excited about working on your game. My experience with the value of sales training, whether it's been my conversations with owners of dealerships, many general managers, many general sales managers, F&I, BDC, service managers, or salespeople, the proof is in the pudding. It's beyond evident that sales training is not only can you not overstate the value of it, but you can't even overstate the underutilization of it. Sales training in any given sales environment, I guarantee you, is being underutilized. You can't stress the importance of it. And I see it day in and day out. Today I will do what others won't. So tomorrow I can do what others can't. Today I will do what others won't. So tomorrow I can do what others can't. The people that put the work in day and day out, it's evident that you know who they are. They stand out amongst the crowd, and you can't overstate the value of sales training. J.D. Power says, and they're the experts, they say that salespeople who receive extensive sales training sell up to 68% more vehicles than don't. Personally, I think that number's a little light, but they say 68%. So if you're training and you're training extensively, you're selling way more cars than the person that isn't. My excitement for you and your future starts here. I'm super pumped, and I can't wait to go through this journey together. At the end of this webinar, I am going to have an exclusive offer just for you at the conclusion of the webinar to really go over some of the great things we're working at behind the scenes that I think you'll find super important. Mind you, we're going to cram a lot of content into a little bit of time. So we are going to have future webinars, and we're going to have future content that I'm going to bring to you. So we're squeezing a lot in to a little bit of time. So just so you know, every one of these slides, we could do a deep dive on if we wanted to. We could sit here for hours. So I'm going to gloss over a lot of stuff, 30,000 foot view. And then in future webinars, each of these slides and the hundreds of other topics that we can dive into, we're really going to do a deep dive on them. But we're going to squeeze a lot in. We might run 45 minutes. We run 60 minutes, whatever. But we'll see how it goes. Q&A, guys, Q&A. I want you to leave your questions in the chat. The free webinars, these free webinars, I try to keep them short The longer live ones, we could sit there for hours answering questions, and I'll sit there for hours answering your questions. But your questions today, I want you to leave them in the chat. I'm also going to leave my personal email. So if you feel more comfortable emailing me privately, or if you think of something after the webinar, I'll answer your question 100% guaranteed. Just shoot me an email. You can leave your questions in the chat as well, and I'll reach out to all of you guys after the webinar. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of the topics we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the history, present, and future of car sales. We're going to talk about the psychology of consumers. We're going to talk about the modern customer. We're going to talk about how to be successful selling cars, properly qualifying your customer, word tracks and closing techniques, my personal favorite, and excuses versus objections. So that's an overview for today's webinar. Just to qualify myself very quickly, at age 10, my dad got into the car business. He started selling cars at Classic Acura in 1998. That's where the Turnersville Auto Mall is now, before it was purchased by Penske. So as a 10-year-old kid, my dad started selling cars. At age 23, I started selling cars at Woodbury Nissan. Within my first year in the business, I was in the top 1% of selling new Nissans in the entire country. At age 25, I was offered an opportunity to be a floor manager at Mountie from Dodge, and then a desk manager at Toyota of Turnersville. Age 27, my sobriety date is July 28th, 2016. That's the most important day of my life to this point, and it's a huge part of my story. So at age 27, I got sober. Age 28, I started my own sales training business. I hit the road and started with sales training and dealership consulting, reaching record numbers for all of our partnering dealers. Our latest success story is one of our stores that sold 69 cars in July of 2022. Just sold this past July 127 cars. So great increase in volume there. And at age 34, how old I am right now, I launched my digital platform. All right, so enough about me. Let's talk about the car business. Let's talk about the car business, the history, the present, and the future of car sales. So if you're new to the game, you may not know this or not, but we kind of got a shitty reputation as car salespeople, right? I mean, people look at us a little different than the average 9-to-5er, but that's not unique to car sales. I think that's unique to sales. I feel like salespeople, for whatever reason, get painted in this negative brushstroke, this negative connotation that's associated with us by people who don't realize that day in and day out, they're salespeople too, right? Like they had to sell their significant other as to why they should date or marry them over somebody else. They have to sell their friends as to why they should go to a certain bar to watch the game as opposed to another one. They got to sell their buddies as to why they should play a certain golf course and not the one they've been playing, for the last few weeks. So we're always selling. Anyone who's applied for a job before, you would just sell the interviewer as to why you're a valuable candidate and you could be an asset to the team. So everyone's a salesperson. But I understand why we have the reputation. I understand it. And we got to own it, right? We got to own it. And I think the reputation comes from generations of untrained salespeople, generations of salespeople that had to try to pull fast ones, had to pull the wool over the customer's eyes because they weren't trained properly and weren't trained in such a way that they can make the deal happen without being slippery and slimy. But with that comes our duty as salespeople to quite literally, in my case, pay for the sins of our fathers, right? Like not my dad in particular, but his generation of salespeople. The salespeople in the 90s, the salespeople in the early 2000s and mid 2000s did things that nowadays, we shouldn't be doing and we don't have to do. But for me, that's a great opportunity. That's an opportunity because think about it. Your customers are coming into the dealership with the bar set extremely low for us. It's very easy to exceed their expectations. They don't expect much out of us. So if we could be refreshing, right? If we can throw them a curveball and just be a normal person, right? Just act like a normal person before a salesperson, their physiological need for human connection will kick in. I promise you that. They will revert to their human instincts, no matter how guarded they may seem, how big that wall may be, how much of a defense mechanism they're using these tactics to protect themselves from being sold. They're kind of just playing hard to get, right? They're playing hard to get with you. It's not that they're not interested in making a deal happen today. They're just protecting themselves. That's an opportunity for us. The bar's set low. Just be genuine. Just be yourself. Train focus, hone your skills, and I promise you, generations past of car salespeople who handle it the wrong way now opens up a great door for you to run through. And for me, the future of car sales, I believe human interaction will mean more in the future than it does now and than it did in the past. We're in an era and an age of AI, social media, filters, fake news, not to get political, but we all read stuff on the internet. We don't know what's real. We don't know what's not, right? So we're longing for this just real human connection. Even via a webinar, right? Seeing another person talk. We don't see this a lot. Now, for us as salespeople, we do more than the average folk, right? Because we're face to face with people all day long if you're doing in-person sales. But most people, they sit in a cubicle from 9 to 5. They're on their phones, all day long, scrolling around, and they don't really have that human connection. And we need that. We're tribal beings. People want to feel connected, and your customers want to feel connected to you, even if they're not showing it. So I think the future of car sales, in the age of Carvana, and we've seen how that worked out in the age of digital retail, everybody's shopping for cars online, but they're coming in the store to get them, and they want to come in the store to get them. That human interaction in the future will mean even more than it does now and than it did in the past. The psychology of consumers, getting in the mind of our customers, right? So we all heard before, you got to build rapport. We got to build rapport. You can't build rapport without building trust. You can't build rapport without building trust. See, our instincts will build trust. Our human instincts, our spidey senses, in our DNA, those human instincts, when we see someone and we're trying to determine whether or not we should trust them, believe it or not, when you first meet somebody, you make 11 impressions about them in the first 7 seconds. Subconsciously, there's 11 boxes you're checking without even knowing it, from educational level to economic level, from their racial and ethnic. Like, there's a lot of stuff people are doing, right? And we're eyeing up that other person the same way your customers are eyeing you up. It's their instincts that'll build trust with you. If you try to build rapport first without building trust, what happens is the customer looks at you through a different lens. See, instincts build trust. Personality builds rapport. If you don't build the trust first, all of your charisma, all of your finesse, all of your smooth moving abilities as a salesperson will now be looked at a little bit different. You look a little slippery, right? Because they don't trust you yet. Now they're wondering, is this guy or girl trying to pull a fast one on me? They're trying to get over on me. So you got to build trust first. Instincts build trust. Personality builds rapport. Don't forget that. And there's 2 questions that your customer is going to ask themselves when making any buying decision. There's only 2 questions. Now, they don't know they're asking these, but they're asking them subconsciously. Number 1, can I do it? Can I do it, right? Can I afford it? Can I make it happen? Do I have permission from my significant other? Like, can I do it? Is it something I could do right now? Do I have the means to do it? Can I do it? Number 2, is it worth it? See, I feel like we lose more deals, not because of the can I do it, but because of the is it worth it? I think more of our customers than we give credit to can actually make the purchase. We just don't build enough value. We don't check the box of, is it worth it? So just know that when your customer's not saying yes to X price, X payment, X scenario, in most cases, right? Because let's face it, let's say they got approved by the bank. If they got approved by the bank, then obviously they can afford it. The bank says they can, right? The bank says they can. So if the bank says yes, they can afford it. So it's not the can I do it that we're missing. It's the is it worth it, right? It's the is it worth it. Warren Buffett says, price is what you pay, value is what you get. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. We got to make sure we're providing value, because discounting price, just dropping the price, that's not adding value. That's just discounting price. In a lot of ways, that's diminishing value and compromising the integrity of the product. So can I do it and is it worth it? Make sure you're checking the is it worth it box for the customer, because let's face it, all the back and forth that we do, a lot of the deals that aren't made, it's not because people are afraid to spend money. They're not afraid to spend money. People are not afraid to spend money. They're afraid to make a decision they're going to regret. They don't want to have buyer's remorse. They're not afraid to spend money. They're afraid to make a decision they're going to regret. You have to help mitigate their fear of potential regret. And whether you do it, there's a plenty of techniques that we can use, comparison closes, all this stuff we're going to dive into on future webinars. But you really you got to remove that fear of potential regret, because people aren't afraid to spend money. They're afraid to make a decision they're going to regret. They're afraid to look back and say, man, I shouldn't have done that. Or, or their peer group tell them that, hey, I think that's a bad deal. I can't believe you did that, right? So we have to mitigate that potential fear of regret. The modern customer, right? The modern customer, see, customers nowadays are a little different than customers a year ago, right? We know this going through the pandemic 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But a lot of things are tried and true still, right? That need for connection, that need to be heard. But customers nowadays value transparency. Edmund says that they're 75% more likely to buy from a dealer who's transparent. Back in the day, we weren't transparent. We felt like we couldn't be transparent because then we were giving up leverage to the customer. But I think the more you're trained and the higher skill level you have, the more confident you can be transparent. So the goal is to always be transparent because, hey, listen, I don't care what the customer says, I can overcome it, right? I can overcome it, right? I'm not selling them something that's not a net tangible benefit to them as a customer. There's net tangible benefits. I back my product, I back my process, I back me as a person, and I back the service I'm going to give my customer. And there's value there. If you're transparent, your customer will value that. I had a customer last week, it was last Wednesday, came into the dealership looking for numbers on a vehicle, gave him the numbers. He said to me, you're the first dealership, and he's been to like 5, that actually gave me a number on the car. First dealership that gave me a number, right? So every store has different processes in terms of, who you serve numbers to or not, get it. But the fact of the matter is, if you're in a position where he's a committed buyer, she's a committed buyer, if you're transparent, they will trust you, they will value that, and they will buy at a 75% more rate than somebody who doesn't give them numbers and isn't transparent. Customers nowadays are more educated. They're more educated, right? For me, that's also a positive. Now, to the old school salesperson, dare I say, they may say, the more they know, the harder it's going to be for me to get over on them. Well, we already discussed that, right? We're at a different age right now. For me, when they're more educated, they're more prepared. They're ready to buy. I'd rather them be educated and me bank on my negotiation skills and my ability to take them through the process in such a seamless way that I create an experience for the customer, which mitigates their need to try to go back and forth with me as much because they really like me and they want to make a deal happen with me. Therefore, I'm able to hold gross profit a lot easier. Like, I want that. I want them to be ready to buy. I'm ready to go to war. Let's do it, right? But if they're not educated and they're not prepared, well then, chances are I'm spinning my wheels a little bit. They have access to so much information online nowadays. They know what to expect. Customers know what to expect when they walk into a car dealership, right? They get it. They know we're going to try to sell them. So for them to walk in with having all of the access they do online, for them to walk in, it shows they're prepared and they're ready to make a deal happen. So don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of that. No matter what they act like, no matter how big that wall is, just know they have plenty of information. They didn't have to come into the dealership today. Now, less than ever, right? They really don't have to come in. If they're showing up, they're ready to make a car deal happen, no matter what they say, And the modern customer will pay for an experience. They'll pay for an experience. Think about a nightclub, right? You go to a nightclub and you buy a drink. I mean, I haven't bought a drink in a nightclub in years and years, but if you were to buy a drink, somebody told me the other day, it's like $20, $30 for a martini or something. Or you buy a bottle of vodka, right? Bottle of vodka in the store might cost $50. You spend $1,000, $800, $600, whatever it is at the nightclub. You're not paying for the vodka. You're not paying for the bottle. You're not paying for the martini. You're not paying for the drink. You're paying for the experience. You're paying for the way you feel when you buy it. You're paying for the music. You're paying for that cold air they pump in there to keep you, all jacked up. You're paying for the way you get dressed up before you go out. You're paying for the pat on your back that you're giving yourself, that you can afford to spend that because you work hard. You want to create that same experience for your customer. They will pay more for a better experience. They will pay more for a better experience. Let's face it. The same customer could walk into the same dealership and work with 2 different salespeople and be willing to pay much more to one than the other. It's the same product. It's the same dealership. For the most part, it's the same road to the sale. but it's the experience that the customer offered, the experience that the salesperson offered the customer, and the customer's perception of that experience, and then also, how highly trained was that salesperson. So offer them an experience, and they will pay more. How to be successful selling cars. How to be successful selling cars. So there's two things that all great salespeople have. Got a little sip of water here. I'm fumbling over my words. I'm jacked up. Two things that all successful salespeople have. They have ego and they have empathy. All right, so ego, what do you mean? They're cocky, no. They're not cocky, they're not condescending. They're confident. They carry themselves in such a way where they transfer a particular energy to their customers. And that energy is certainty. They're certain about what they're talking about, right? They're confident. They deliver that confidence to the customer and then inspire that customer to also feel confidence. You have to have a little ego about you. You got to be firm with the courage of your convictions. You got to back what you're saying and truly believe in it. And then your customer will feel that and it'll resonate with them. But you got to have empathy. You got to have empathy. You got to have bedside manner, right? You got to have bedside manner with your customer. See, sympathy is I feel bad for you. Empathy is I understand the way you feel. I felt that way before. But with that being said, I do believe this is the best decision for you. Totally get it. May seem like it's a little much for you right now, but after you look back, tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, you'll realize you made the right decision. So ego and empathy, you got to have a healthy balance of that. You can't be too confident and egotistical, but not have empathy for your customer where they feel like you understand the way they feel. And then you can't be too empathetic where you're just a complete customer advocate and you're never able to actually make the deal happen and give them that necessary nudge to make the close. As a salesperson, you have to be resourceful. You have to be resourceful. I don't believe there's a lack of resource in the world. I believe there's a lack of resourcefulness, right? And as a salesperson, so let's say you're just getting started, right? You're just starting out in sales. I know there's a couple people on this webinar that literally are starting on Monday, their first day selling cars, and I'm pumped up to train them. Resourcefulness, well, what does that mean? Well, you got to be able to think on your feet. Well, what do I think about? I don't really know anything yet, right? So let's reverse engineer back a little bit. So you're going to gain confidence from knowledge, right? So the more you train, the more you focus, the more you study, the more experience you have, you're going to gain confidence, right? That's good. You're going to gain confidence. That's going to lead to you being able to think on your feet, right? A lot of the things that you're going to be thinking about day to day, during your day in the dealership, they're not going to be conscious thoughts. They're going to be subconscious thoughts. They're buried in your subconscious. You don't have to think about them, right? They're second nature, right? But if you're just starting out, right? Resourcefulness is something you could still have as long as you have the confidence, not that you know everything, but that you're confident in yourself to go and find the answer. You're confident that no matter what I'm asked by the customer, I will go and find that answer. And that alone will carry you in any industry, right? The confidence that, hey, if I don't know it, I'm going to find it out because I'm not going to quit until I do. That's a decision you can make. So come from a place of strength, come from a place of confidence and power that if you don't know the answer, you're confident you'll know where to find it. And in this day and age of Google, we can figure anything out, right? So you should feel that way. Resourcefulness is the ability to pivot, go left, then go right, then go back and forth. It's be able to think on your feet. But most importantly, if you're new to the game, if you're new to sales, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be confident in the fact that you do know everything. Be confident in the fact that if you need to figure something out, you know where to find it, and you're not going to stop until you do. EQ versus IQ. EQ versus IQ. So IQ, we've all taken, I think, in school, IQ tests back in like second grade, measures your intelligence, right? Measures your intelligence. EQ is your emotional intelligence. 80% of your success in business and particularly in sales, depends upon your EQ, your emotional intelligence, not your IQ. This sales game is being able to kind of navigate the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, being able to stop from free falling when we're in a little bit of a rut, being able to turn, a bad morning or a slow day into a better morning and a better day, not making a bad day turn into a bad week into a bad month, right? And it's all between here. It's all between the ears. So 80% of what we do is actually based on our emotional intelligence, because you can have all the IQ in the world. You could be the smartest, sharpest, most highly trained, most intellectual salesperson that's ever lived. But if you can't manage your emotional intelligence, you'll be the most highly trained, intellectual, smartest salesperson that ever lived without a job, right? Without a job. So I've found in my experience in sales, hiring, training salespeople, that the one thing that separates, the wolves from the sheep, the best from the average, is the best salespeople have an uncanny way of checking themselves and stopping the free fall before it happens, right? It's not even so much how high your high is, it's preventing how low your low gets, right? Being able to stop those little slumps from turning into all out, month-long ruts. So manage your emotional intelligence. Whatever that takes, there's plenty of content on the computer about that. We're going to go over a bunch of that stuff in future webinars, different techniques to be able to keep yourself composed, keep yourself in flow, and almost have a force field around you so that no matter what happens during the day, you continue to stay on that path and the path you need to be on in order to sell cars and make money. Properly qualifying your customer. Properly qualifying your customer. I was always brought up to believe that the best way to sell someone their next car is to figure out how they bought their last one. The best way to sell someone their next car is to figure out how they bought their last one. And you only do that through a proper and thorough qualifying process. People are creatures of habit. Buyers, consumers, are also creatures of habit, right? So if you had that customer that on their last vehicle put $5,000 down on a lease, chances are you're going to be able to replicate that and even get more, right? Like that customer that leased their last car and put $5,000 down, this time around, in most cases, isn't going to want to finance and put nothing down. And if they do, just know that that's maybe them trying to try something new. That's one of the easier ones to overcome. You may have to kind of dig at it a little bit, but you will be able to overcome that because people are creatures of habit. We like comfort. We don't like change. And the best way to sell someone their next car is to figure out what they did to buy their last one. The guess sheet, the needs assessment, the up sheet, the needs discovery, whatever your dealership calls it, is of the utmost importance, right? So when I was at the sales desk, when I was at the tower, if you came up to me and your guess sheet wasn't filled out completely, line by line, I would send you back to the customer and get the rest of the information because I was brought up that way. The guess sheet is not a chore. It's a tool. I've designed a guess sheet that I basically took all of my guess sheets throughout my career, trimmed the fat, added what's important, created in such a way that I believe flows perfectly for my salespeople that gets right to the point and extracts all of the data. Some of the data we extract from the customer in the guess sheet, if you ask the questions properly and have the proper questions, you can actually use against the customer in the close to overcome certain objections based on what they told you on the guess sheet. So we're going to dive into that on future webinars. There's a couple questions that I love that I'm almost kind of baiting the customer a little bit for when I get into the close. You have to use the guess sheet. It's a tool. Use it properly. Now, folks, the guess sheet, it's an interview, not an interrogation, right? It's an interview, not an interrogation. You don't want to get combative during the guess sheet, right? You don't want to get combative, but you do want to fight for certain things on the guess sheet as well. So if it's money down, you want to fight for it on the guess sheet. You want to fight as much as you can because that's your baseline for when you present numbers. You want to get as much as you can on the guess sheet because in the negotiation process, during the back and forth, your customer's only going to want to move so much. Now they may move on a second visit, but for that visit, that's the most they're willing to do, right? Like that's the most you're going to get out of them on that visit. So you want to get a head start going into presenting the pencil. Same thing. Let's say you want to steer a customer towards a lease. On the guess sheet, you want to fight for the lease. And the reason why is you want to save the customer from themselves. And what do I mean by that is, let's say you're on the guess sheet and you're offering a lease option to a customer. No, I don't want a lease. You want to say to your customer, well, we do have really aggressive lease options. I can show you both just in case you change your mind. Or we do have really aggressive lease options. I'll show you that and the finance, and you can pick whatever works best for you. You want to fight for it a little bit on the guess sheet because here's what happens. Let's say you present numbers to a customer on a finance and the numbers, they're just too much for them, right? You're grinding for an hour. If you go to offer them the lease, a couple things happen. Number one, paralysis by analysis. It's information overload. They're going to stall. They're going to say, you know what? Let me just go home. And I really never thought about leasing. It's just too much for them right then and there. It's too much for them. The other thing that happens is in their mind, they feel as if they're settling for the second best option. Even though you offered them the lease on the guest sheet, they feel like once the finance was presented and you couldn't make the numbers work, now if they lease, they're settling for the second best option. So we have to kind of save them psychologically from themselves, even though they're the ones that say no to the lease in the first place. So these things happen on the guest sheet. These things happen on the guest sheet. Another question on the guest sheet: are you going to be the only registered owner of the vehicle, right? And we all know that, right? We want to know, are all decision makers here? Are all decision makers here, right? Finding out how the customer got their current payment so low, right? So low. Do we put some money down? Do we have a trade-in? Yeah, I put some money down to trade-in. And the trade-in, do you know how much equity you have for that? Do you know what they gave you for it? I don't remember. Oh, you don't remember? Oh, so they don't remember what they got for their trade last time. So now when I'm in the close this time and they're beating me up over a trade, John, in all fairness, I know when we were doing that needs discovery, I'd ask you what you got for your trade, and last time you said you didn't remember, which you shouldn't remember because it's not important. It's not important. Yes, it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle. You left with that car last time because two things, and the only two things that mattered most, and both of those boxes were checked. One, the vehicle that you were going to drive home in, that you were going to pick your wife up from work, that you were going to take your family out to dinner, that you're going to take your kids to soccer tomorrow in, and two, the monthly payment. They're the only two things that matter, right? So just the way to use the guest sheet to extract data. We're going to dive headfirst into that in future webinars. And your job for your customer, and you can tell them this straight up, my job is to find everything you need in a vehicle for as little money as possible. Everything you need in a vehicle for as little money as possible. Now, to the average consumer, that's a little different, right? Because think about it. Let's say you go into Nordstrom, right? You got to buy a suit, right? Or you got to buy a dress for whatever it may be. The salesperson is going to try to sell you the most expensive suit. That's where the biggest margins are, right? But if you're out there and you're trying to switch your customer from a loaded up Grand Cherokee to a Cherokee, because they're driving a Honda Accord, right? And they want a little bit of a bigger vehicle and an SUV. In the mind of the consumer, it's like, wow, like they're not trying to sell me the most loaded up car. He's looking out for me. You're the trusted advisor that's looking out for them. And the reason you do that is because, yes, if you show them a vehicle with all the bells and whistles, you're going to blow them away with the car, but you're also going to blow them away with the numbers. And then if you try to switch cars, once you come back inside, once again, they feel as if they're settling. So, and it's all about compared to what, right? Like in life, everything's about compared to what. That's a nice car compared to what? That's an attractive person compared to who? That's a big house compared to what house, right? They make a lot of money compared to who? So if you think about this, like I'll put it in different terms. Let's say you were looking for a home, right? And like for me personally, my lease is up in about 9 months. I probably want to get a 2-bedroom apartment. I have a 1-bedroom apartment now. Probably want a 2-bedroom. But let's say the realtor showed me everything that I want in a house. Not everything that I need, everything that I want. Well, I want a 10-bedroom mansion, right? Yeah, show me. I want a $3 million house with a pool with the finished basement. I don't need it, right? I can't afford it, but that's what I want. If they show me that, then they try to show me a 2-bedroom apartment, even though the 2-bedroom apartment is more than what I have now. It's less than the mansion they showed me. In most cases, that'll cause a buyer to pause, to stall and say, you know what? Let me just wait until I can get what I really want, right? Let me not get the Cherokee until I can afford the Grand Cherokee that I really want. But they don't really want the Grand Cherokee. You made them want the Grand Cherokee. You landed them on the Grand Cherokee on the lot because you showed them everything they wanted, not everything they needed. So I tell them my job is to find you everything you need in a vehicle for as little money as possible. Who doesn't like to hear that? And if there's some room afterwards to add a few bells and whistles, we could do that too, all right? We could do that too. So that'll build trust with your customer. That'll prevent them from feeling like they're settling. And psychologically, that'll always position them to feel like they're getting more than what they currently have. And in most cases, it's going to be anyway. Anything you sell them is going to be more than what they have now, or newer, or less miles, right, than what they currently have. And it'll definitely stop some of your buyers from pausing so that they can wait to get to what they really want. Word tracks, closing techniques. Word tracks, closing techniques. We're a little over the halfway mark, guys. A little over the halfway mark. Word tracks and closing techniques. Isolating objections. This transcends any sales industry. This is like so important. So many times I see salespeople trying to overcome what I call blanket objections. They get thrown 10 objections by the customer and they try to overcome all of them at once because that's the easy way out, right? It's like, and I know it. I'm a salesperson. I get it. It's like, oh, I got to overcome all these objections. This guy's not buying. This is just a waste of time. It's 12:30. I just door dashed my food. Let me get rid of this customer and let me get a reel up. Let me get a reel up. You got to overcome each objection one at a time, and you will be able to do it. You will be able to make a deal. So isolating objections, we're going to dive into every word track and every closing technique on future webinars and in future content. But let's just take some of the basics, right? Isolating objections. It's too much. Customer says it's too much, right? And for some of you that have gone through training, what's too much? What's too much? But you got to isolate for the customer. It's too much, right? Now, when you say it's too much, John, do you mean the down payment or monthly payment? Do you mean the down payment or monthly payment? Isolating the objection. Well, both. And both. Okay, great. Let's start with the down payment. I got to go one at a time. Right? Customer needs to think about it, right? Well, what do you need to think about? When you say you need to think about it, is it the car or the money? Is it the car or the money? These little flow charts that we create, but you got to isolate it. And there may be multiple objections. You got to isolate and you got to overcome them. You want to address and redirect too. Address and redirect. For those of you who have gone through my training before, and there's a lot of you on here who have, address and redirect is my favorite technique. It's my favorite technique because you see, I have a belief that, and this is especially evident over the phone. I tell my BDCs this all the time, that customers in a lot of cases don't care what your answer to their question is. They don't care about your answer. They care about your willingness to answer. Are you the type of salesperson that's willing to answer, or are you the salesperson that's going to dance around and try to avoid the objection, avoid the question? So you want to hit them head on. You want to address it head on. Address. But then you can't get stuck there. You can't get stuck on objection island. You got to redirect back to what you want to talk about, right? So let's say the customer objects over the trade-in value, right? Objects over the trade-in value. And there's a zillion different word tracks we can use, but hypothetically, John says, I'm not getting enough money for my trade-in. I thought it'd be worth more. I would say, John, I totally understand. And as you know, the used car market dictates the values of the trade-in, but the trade-in is just one piece of the puzzle. So let me ask you this, John. Assuming we know that the trade-in is just one piece of the puzzle. Assuming we know that, and let's say we were good with the trade. Let's say we were good with the trade, right? Which he's not, but I'm saying hypothetically. I want to address and redirect. Let's say we were good with the trade. What's the next step? What's the next step? And then I go right back to my worksheet. What's the next step? I go back to the worksheet. His eyes follow my eyes. That's my way of telling him, John, it's now time to give me this pertinent information. It also avoids the awkwardness of me just staring at him. What's the next step? Could you do the $5,000 down? So I address and redirect back to the down payment. I address and redirect back to the down payment. Same on the lot, right? Same on the lot. This sticker price, I don't think we're going to, I don't think I'm willing to pay sticker price. I'm not paying the addendum, blah, 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 blah. John, totally get it. We've never lost a deal over price or payment. That's the easy part. The hardest part is picking out your favorite color. Let's make sure you pick out your favorite color. Let's make sure you pick out a vehicle that you love so much you want to take home today. And I promise you, if we work together, we'll make the numbers work. If we work together, plant some seeds that John's got to do his part as well. Address and redirect. Address and redirect. We're going to spend probably a whole webinar on just different examples of that. We're going to do a lot of Q&A where you guys are going to be able to type into the chat, hey, what if the customer says this? And I'll teach you how to overcome all of those, how to address and redirect. One quick point about that. When you address, the segue, the bridge back to the redirect is super important. It can't be this. No, don't worry about that. That's not important. Worry about this, right? No, who cares about the trade? And that doesn't matter. Can you do the money down? So there's a technique to it. You got to be smooth with it, and that takes a lot of practice. My guys and girls know that from practicing a ton with me. So you have to really master the address, and then the redirect is of super importance. If not, they'll stop you in your tracks and they'll bring you back to the objection, and you'll kind of get lost on objection island. And the two things matter close. We talked about that on previous slides. And I tell them straight up, if I'm negotiating back and forth, I'll say, listen, at the end of the day, John, at the end of the day, Mary, you know it and I know it. Only two things really matter. Number one, and I write it down. I'm big on visual. I write everything down. People that know me know I go through about a stack of Xerox paper when I'm TOing deals and when I'm training. I believe that it adds validity to what I'm saying by them also seeing it on paper, right? There's something about that. The written word resonates with us through years and years, thousands of years of telling stories. Only two things matter. The vehicle that you're going to leave with today, right? That new car you're going to go home in, and the monthly payment. And that's really all that matters, right? The rest of it is them satisfying their need to negotiate, which we have to sprinkle a little bit in there, right? Because we got to make sure that they feel as if that they did their part in making the deal happen. But really, only two things matter, and you can tell them that straight up. They're the only two things that matter. Then you can go and make sure you have a commitment on the car, right? A commitment on the car, and then you go to the monthly payment. And in most cases, it's probably going to be the monthly payment. I think now more than ever, customers are coming in. Well, I know this. The data suggests they're coming in on specific vehicles. The car, in most cases, nowadays isn't the problem because they're coming in on specific cars, right? Nowadays, it's not the problem. And these new cars, they're making them these new cars have everything. So it's usually not the car, right? It's that you didn't build enough value in the car. That's the problem, but it's not the car itself. Proper product presentation, demonstration, revisiting what they're getting in the vehicle mid-close, right? The summary close, revisiting what they're getting could be very important for you as well. Excuses versus objections. Excuses versus objections. There's a big difference. Right? What do they say in the court of law? You're innocent until proven guilty. That's, up for debate. For me, the customer is guilty until proven innocent. Guilty until proven innocent. I don't give their objection the proper credence until they prove to me it's really an objection. To me, it's an excuse. Until proven otherwise. We're going to go over the differences on the next couple slides. You have to exercise selective listening. What do I mean by that? Well, similar to a child, if a child's crying and complaining about this and that, and I want my Cheerios, and I want the video game, and I want to go outside, I want to stay up till 10 o'clock, and I want to run around the house naked, whatever it may be, you can't entertain every little thing they complain about. You'll be spending all of your time doing that. Every time you do it, you give them more power, you give them more leverage, because they know if they cry, you will change, the scenario reality. Same with customers. You got to be selective. You can hear everything, right? There's a big difference between hearing and listening. You can hear everything, but you can't listen and take everything to heart. A, because it's going to psych you out. It's going to throw you off your game. And B, because a lot of it isn't real. What you do by giving credence and by entertaining every complaint they have, what you're actually doing is you're not saving them from themselves, and you're forcing them to lie to you in a lot of ways, right? So let's say they're trying to bluff you with their payment tolerances. I want to be $300 a month. Okay. Well, if you entertain that truly, you're forcing them to keep the lie up throughout the entire process, because they're not going to want to compromise their integrity. They're not going to want to look like they were lying to you, right? And then a weird thing happens too when you start building great rapport and they start to really like you. They feel even worse to tell you that early on they were bullshitting you. Like, that weird thing happens where rapport sometimes works against you. It's interesting how that happens. We're going to go over how to kind of avoid that in future webinars. But let's say you build strong rapport with them. Now they feel bad to tell you early on that, hey, I was kind of BSing you. I don't want to be 3. I can actually be 550. So it's like, you got to selectively listen. Don't force them to have to stand their ground throughout the entire process and keep the lie up, right? And keep the lie up. So why do they make these excuses? Like, why don't they just, why don't they just tell us what's up, right? Why do they make these excuses that seem like objections? Why do they make us go through all this, right? So the number one reason they make excuses, number one, is to complain. It's to complain. Built into society right now with the rise of social media, everyone has a platform, and everyone feels as if that every little thing they think, feel, or want to say should be heard and should be shouted out from the rooftops. And yes, people's opinions and feelings do matter, but sometimes it gets a little carried away. Customers complain, A, because of that, because of society norms, but B, because they know that inherently built into this process, the customer's always right. And they're exercising that right to be right, right? They know that. The customer's always right, and they're taking full advantage of it. Also, they just may be complainers by nature, right? Or they may not have anybody at home that listens to them, and this is their one time to kind of let off the way they feel and know that somebody's supposed to be listening. So a lot of this is going on. A lot of it's just complaining, man. A lot of it's just complaining. So you want to look out for that. Number one, they're just complaining. Number two, They're stalling. They're stalling. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, right? Change is scary. Change is scary. We've all been there. We've all been in that shitty, toxic relationship, right? We've all been there. And we've all known that, the other person, that other girl, or if you're got whatever it may be, they're better for me. I know they're better for me, but it's not killing me right now. At least I don't know about it anyway. I'm getting by, I'm surviving, but change is scary. The unknown, right? Even if that other vehicle I know is better for me. I know I'm having problems with my current car. I know I can afford that new car. I know I want that new car. It's just that leap of faith, right? So they stall. They stall because they're not afraid to spend money. They're afraid to make a decision they're going to regret. So they could be stalling. If they're not complaining, they're stalling, guys. They're stalling. Number 3, they're negotiating. Oh, I thought they don't like to do the back and forth. I don't want to do the back and forth. No. You want to do the back and forth. You just don't like doing the back and forth when it's not working in your favor. See, if every time you sent me from my desk up to the sales desk to the tower and I came back and I lowered your payment $50 a month, would you like the back and forth then? Pretty sure you'd be hitting me like a ping pong ball back and forth. They love to negotiate. They love to negotiate for sport. And they should. Part of them should, because we need to satisfy their need to negotiate to feel as if they helped make the deal happen, right? And that's why, we peel them off the ceiling, right? So part of that is necessary to make a good deal. Part of it's necessary to make a good deal. But they do negotiate for sport. They negotiate just to make sure they didn't leave any money on the table, and to make sure that their pride's intact, that they didn't get taken advantage of, and they're not a bobblehead just saying yes to everything you say, right? So they're either complaining, they're stalling, they're negotiating, or here's the 4th reason. It's actually valid. Guys, it's actually valid. That Porsche is great. Yellow Porsche, black wheels, sweet, right? It would serve no purpose to a family of 7. It just wouldn't, it doesn't make sense. It's a valid objection. Hey, and I love the Porsche, but I just can't. I got the kids, I got the wife, right? We got another one on the way. Sometimes it's valid. Or they're a 400 score, they got no money down, they're upside down 13 grand. It just, they don't have the money, they can't afford it. It's one of those things. So sometimes it is valid, but don't just assume it's valid. Assume that there are excuses until proven otherwise. Then you can, give it the credence of being an objection. All right, let's look ahead to the next webinar that we're going to have in 2 weeks. Next webinar in 2 weeks on the 18th, same time, 10 a.m. We're going to look ahead. We're going to go over tried and true principles, a powerful meet and greet, understanding the math, right? Understanding the math of sales, understanding the math of probability, the probability of your success, understanding how to negotiate, all of those things, understanding the math. The motivation myth. I personally think motivation's bullshit. For those of you who've trained with me, you know why. We're going to talk about that next and some of the science that backs it. Word tracks and closing techniques, my favorite. Prospecting tips, and social experiments in sales. I love that. Case studies, social experiments that highlight all of the things that we kind of know, but we've never really seen the data or the actual studies that back it, and that's really interesting stuff. Q&A, guys, Q&A. I want you to leave your questions in the chat. Leave them in the chat. I promise that I will email all of you with the answers to your questions. I'm going to drop my personal email in here right now. You can email me directly if you so choose, if you feel more comfortable doing that. I will also email all of you back. So I'm typing it right here. Personal email right there. Drop your questions in the chat. I'll run the webinar about 2 or 3 minutes long afterwards. Drop the questions in the chat. Or if you want to email me directly, I promise to answer all of them. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for hopping on today. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to come on here and to spend some time to hone your skills, dedicate yourself to your craft. I'm extremely grateful. This is like my favorite thing to do. I'm super jacked up about it. And I'm super excited for all of your future. And I commend you for being here and your commitment to kind of taking your career to new heights and separating yourself from the pack. Just know, right now, August 4th, Friday, 10:51 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you're part of the 0.1% of all salespeople taking time out of their day to make themselves better. I promise you that. And it's just the beginning of our journey together. As part of my commitment to your success, we have future free webinars coming. We also have exciting products that we've been working on for a long time, for years and years, that we're excited to bring to you. So stay connected to us. keep an eye out for emails, keep an eye out for text messages about the future webinars and the exclusive content that we're going to send you. I will be emailing all of you over the next day or so with a 3-question questionnaire. I would love your feedback, in regards to the webinar. I'd love to hear about, what you liked, about the webinar, some of the things you didn't like, and some of the things you want to see more of. So I'm going to send you that email. Please, I'd love your feedback. It means everything to me. The things that we're working on behind the scenes, the one thing that I am super jacked up about, like this is coming next. We got some awesome AI stuff we're working on, but our university, we're launching a university, a sales training university. It's comprehensive. It dives deep into everything you need to know about selling cars. So far, we have 55 course chapters that we've developed. We have plenty more that we're going to add, and we're going to be adding content along the way in real time. So whether you're a crafty vet, whether you're new to the game, I promise you, I guarantee there's a ton of valuable stuff on there. And we're going to have, you're going to be able to see how you match up against other salespeople at other dealerships in the industry. So I'm super pumped about that. Keep an eye out for that. I'm super excited to bring it to you. You're going to gain all of the skills, all of the knowledge, and the strategies that you need to excel in a competitive automotive market. The market right now, we know it. It's more competitive than it was ever, right? I mean, it's changing. Times are changing, and now we're figuring out who the wolves are and who the sheep are, because we're not sitting around falling into 10K deals every day. It's just not happening. So it's getting more and more competitive, and I'm excited for you to separate yourself from the rest. So if you're interested in learning more, don't hesitate to reach out. My phone's always on. My email's always available. Reach out. I'm super pumped for you. I'm super pumped for your future. Thank you again. Your commitment to excellence is truly inspiring. I remember being a salesperson, 23 years old, sitting in, the showroom of my dealership at the little round tables, and I would overcome objections and kind of role play with myself, and I would flip these flashcards, and every flashcard had an objection, and I would try to overcome them. And I was training by myself, and some of the veteran salespeople, I won't name their names, they would walk by and kind of laugh and laugh at me basically for what I was doing. But, as they say, I kept all the receipts, and I knew someday that, I would separate myself from them. So I think about them every single day that I crack the door of the dealership, any webinar that I do, any YouTube video that I do, any training that I ever do, I think about those guys that walked by and kind of laughed at me, and I kept the receipts. So I commend you for you taking the time out of your day to separate yourself. Don't ever let anybody make you feel like because you want to get better, that's something you should, be shy about or ashamed of. I wish you continued success on behalf of our team, not only in your automotive career, but everything that you do in life. I wish you continued success. I thank you again. Happy selling. Go out there, make some fat deals. Set up your Saturday as well. Have an awesome weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much. Drop your questions in the chat. Shoot me an email if you'd like to do that instead. Thank you so much. And that's my email, guys. A little shirt. I'll get you one. Yes, we're going to record this and send it out. Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. Insurance objections. Jack, I will reach out to you. We'll go over that.